I am your host, Nicole Will, and we're so happy you're here as we navigate the world with your aging loved one. We are here to come alongside older adults, family members, and the senior living community as we explore the world of aging and elder care with helpful resources, informative interviews, and approachable conversation. We get to do this together, so join us on our journey, and this is the Will Gather podcast. How do we make it easy for patients and caregivers to stay connected to the people who love them in meaningful ways? My guest today is Beverly Klau, founder and CEO of Verbina, a care tech app focused on supporting patients, caregivers, and the people who love them. Today, we explore the power of community and the impact of combating isolation and loneliness on our health and well-being. Verbina's mission is to boost the resilience of those on their health journey and harness the collective power of community support. Beverly is a true connector at heart and brings her passion connecting healthcare and caregiving. We talk about how Beverly's personal experience navigating a health journey was inspired to create this mission of community and promote resilience. We look at how healthcare providers and community organizations play a vital role in combating that isolation and loneliness. We also shed light on the challenges and barriers patients and caregivers may face when trying to connect with others. And for those seeking to build resilience and connect with others, Beverly provides valuable advice and highlights resources available. We'll learn some encouraging examples of how people have utilized the platform and explore how we can overcome our hesitancy if we've never done this before, being able to foster deeper connections. Together, if we embrace the power of community in building resilience and overcoming our health challenges, we can do this together. Here is my interview with Beverly Klau. I'm so excited to hear your story and for you to share with us what you're up to, what's happening. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really looking forward to talking with you and sharing Verbina with your audience.
Me too. So we had the pleasure of being introduced through Kim Wider and the Care Colloquium. Tell me, what did you think of that? What did you love about it? How was that for you?
Oh, that was an incredible experience to be in a space with a whole, I want to say tribe, like a whole group of people that are passionate and focused on caring for caregivers and trying to really collaborate, as the colloquium was really designed to do, to work together to support caregivers and really address something that affects every single person on this planet. And it was really an invigorating experience, at times overwhelming, because there were so many people that I wanted to really get to know. But it was, I feel like, an introduction to the work that we're all going to be doing together.
I think so too. Yeah, it was incredible to see how everyone was coming together, wanted to share, was so excited. We were all so excited to meet each other finally and share our story and be able to learn. So much learning from everybody. Yeah, it was awesome.
I agree. Yes.
It was so
No,
good.
and I feel very privileged to be there and to be learning from people who've been focused on this need for so much longer than I have been, and to learn from them and to see, to kind of use their knowledge and really grow from it.
I agree. Well, and it brought us together, which is the best.
Yes, yes, thank
Which
you.
is the best. Yes. Well, you know firsthand what it is like to be a caregiver and just the needs that we have and what we go through. Can you tell us more about that and how your story brought you to then want to create a product that can really benefit and give those families and all of us that ability to connect with each other?
Absolutely. So, my identity as a caregiver, I see there have been 2 points in my life thus far where I've been a caregiver. One, in my early 20s, I was a caregiver to my father, but that was in conjunction with my mom. So I was not the really sole caregiver. But I experienced what it means to be a caregiver. And really my first experience with caring for a loved one who was on a health journey that was terminal. And really, I feel like that was my first experience as an adult. I think it really separates, it was a turning point in my life where I really understood the fragility of life and that life has some real moments of sadness and grief, and I feel like it really separated. Like I can think of like the time before my dad got sick and then the time after. And I felt that people who had already also had those experiences, I felt a connection with them. And so I think that was my first experience with isolation, is when you're in your 20s and life is for the most part very carefree. I had this kind of understanding of like, no, there can be a lot more that are serious aspects of life. And then more recently, being a caregiver to my daughter in my 40s, and I was a caregiver to her along with my husband. So we were working together, but I was really the one by her bedside and really took ownership of a lot of the advocating and taking to doctor's appointments and like all of those logistics. And I think burdened with a lot more of the worrying than he was. He was able to compartmentalize in a way that I wasn't able to. And so for that experience of being a caregiver, I was reminded of the time of caregiving for my father, because I also felt that isolation. But in this time, I also was able to see from her perspective how disconnected she was as a patient from her friends, and really how hard that was for her. So, and that also as the caregiver made me so sad and concerned that she was also not able to connect with her friends in meaningful ways. Yeah. So those two experiences informed Verbina, as well as my experience as an educator and as a community builder. So my whole professional life up until creating Verbina has really been focused on community. And when I was a classroom teacher, my most favorite part about teaching was always the community building aspect, the time sitting on the rug, having space for students to share with each other, learn from each other, and grow as a group, and building empathy. Those were always what I focused on as a teacher. And then more recently, I became a facilitator, really loved that work, and also a community builder at a grassroots level in my town. I created some programs in my town, to welcome immigrants to the school where my kids attended, and then that became a program in our that extended to other schools in our town, and then also a program to connect neighbors with each other. And I did that in conjunction with an anti-racism group in our town, as well as with the library. So my focus has always been about creating space for people to connect. And I think that passion of mine, combined with my experience as a caregiver, was kind of what came together to help make Verbina a reality. And that like this calling that's like, okay, you see the power of community, and you see also how lonely and isolating caregiving is and being a patient is. And then I started doing the research of like, oh, is this experience of being lonely, is this universal when you're on a health journey? So that's really what led to the creation of this platform.
What an incredible mission. And to take all those different settings and you see the power of that and then how it comes together. When you found, the research of the isolation and the loneliness, there's this whole mission of we want to pull out from people when they're in those places that there's that sense of belonging and that they're supported. And so we will get into more of the research, but did you find that that's what families were really needing at those times, that did they express their need for that community and experiencing some of that loneliness?
Absolutely. I think different people need different things when they're on health journeys. I talked to a friend who she is now in remission from breast cancer, but she said that, when she was going in for treatments, she would want to be distracted with like, tell me things about your life. Like I want to just hear like mundane, funny things. Tell me a joke, tell me something silly. And other people will want to hear something a bit more, remind me of a happier time, or give me messages of love and support. Different people, I think, really need different things to buoy them and give them the resilience that they need. And so part of it is recognizing, if either asking for what you need, or as a caregiver, kind of sensing what does someone need who's on a health journey. I can give you an example. So for my daughter, for Sadie, leading to an MRI, which it was not her first one, but no one likes going into an
Oh my
MRI.
gosh,
And
I do
so,
not like them at all. It's like
so,
so claustrophobic.
they're awful. They're
Yeah.
loud. They're claustrophobic. Even though it doesn't hurt, it's so uncomfortable. And the part
Hmm.
of it is also like the anxiety leading up to it, right? So I reached out to just a very small group of family and friends before one of Sadie's MRIs, and I said, "Hey, it would be great if you just sent a little message saying we're thinking about you, we love you, we're sending you good energy." And so then on the drive to the hospital for this appointment, I said, "Sadie, guess what? I've got a verbena for you." She's like, "What?" And so,
Oh.
I sent it to her and she opens it up on her phone. And so the drive is then her just watching these videos over and over and feeling just one, distracted, two, supported, and then again in the waiting room she like opens it up again, and that would have been time where she probably would have been feeling uncomfortable, not feeling very disconnected from friends and family. And as the caregiver, you feel helpless. Like, what am I supposed to do? You're like trying to, find the right music to play, or let me, tell you a story. And it's like, it's so stressful as the caregiver to know what to do. And this is something tangible that you can actually do for your loved one.
Have the action. I think sometimes we're like, we want to, like you said, tangible. We want to do something to be able to have action and then see it through is so helpful, especially
Mhm.
when we want to take away the fear or do something. I don't know. I always feel helpless in those situations. So
Absolutely.
it gives it
Yes.
that
Yes.
support. So there's different ways that when we experience the isolation and the loneliness, it can also affect our like physical and mental health. How do you see that manifest for people?
So, I've seen it firsthand, but then I also, have looked at the research that's being done, at a real academic level.
Hmm.
And what I've learned, what's out there, like this growing body of research, is really quite incredible. So what we now know is that social connection is important for physical, emotional, and mental health. And a lack of social connection is worse for your health than obesity, smoking, and high blood pressure. And
Wow.
that's significant. And
So,
our current Surgeon General, who has been the Surgeon General under Obama, Trump, and Biden, Vivek Murthy, this has been his main focus has been on social connection. He wrote a wonderful book called Together. And so if anyone is interested in learning more about, he pulls together a lot of the research and also personal anecdotal examples. But the studies are out there that show that people who are lonely have more disease, and they're more vulnerable to disease, have an increased risk of stroke, more likely to develop neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. And we also know that lonely people are 25% more likely to die prematurely. So
mm,
this, when I started learning about this, I
yeah,
found it really startling.
yeah,
It's like, why aren't more people talking about how
right.
important social connection really is to your health?
There's actual data behind it.
Mhm,
It's not
mhm.
just an idea. Yeah.
Right. And it's not just an
Wow.
idea. It's not just like
Mm-hmm.
a hunch, like, yeah, I do feel better when I, connect with people. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, there's actual, we're designed as a species. We're social. Like we need that. Even those of us who consider themselves introverted, we still need to connect with others.
Exactly. Do you see the challenges or barriers that keep people from connecting with others that are on that health journey? What have you
Absolutely.
witnessed? Yeah.
Yeah, I think a big piece of it is there's actually an anxiety for knowing how to reach out and connect
Mm-hmm.
with someone who's on a health journey. There's so much fear around what to say, how to say it. I don't want to bother them. It'll make them sad. Whether it's reaching out to the patient or the caregiver, people are not as comfortable. It's a lot harder to connect with someone on a health journey than to connect with people who are healthy, because you have to actually start addressing real stuff, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just harder. You can't just talk about the weather. And I think that what we have really seen is that people they hesitate because they don't know what to do. And so we kind of see this as like a social connection anxiety. And I think one of the things to know is like everyone feels this. You really can't say anything wrong. and just showing up is the most important thing.
That's great advice. And thank you for speaking to that we all have experienced feeling that way. I think we don't know always what to say, so then we don't say anything. And that is more detrimental. We just need to say the thing and show the
Absolutely.
support. Yeah.
I remember very well, like my dad was sick over 20 years ago, and my very best friend never asked me, how are you? How's your dad? What's going on? I saw her almost every day. We would go, we'd go for walks, we'd go to the gym, we'd go out for dinner, but we would just talk about surface things. And finally, she knew I went home almost every weekend to go see my dad. And finally, one day I said, why don't you ever ask how I am or how my dad is? And she said, oh, I didn't want to make you upset.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I'm already upset.
Yeah.
It's like the elephant in the living room.
Yeah, it's more uncomfortable when you don't address what is like blaringly present. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I think also when you are in that experience and you're wondering, why isn't this friend or neighbor not asking, they are thinking about it. They know they should. They just are nervous. They don't want to upset you, or, they're thinking, we're having such a great conversation about this mundane thing. I don't want to upset them.
Right. And sometimes I think of it too, where I have had to acknowledge that some people don't have the tools to go there, right? If we're disconnected with ourselves emotionally, how then can we connect with other people? And so trying to have grace in those moments, but then also I loved how you just asked your friend, like, why don't you ask me? I want to talk about this. I want to be able to share this part of my life with the people that I'm in relationship with.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's important to, to have those trickier conversations and to ask for what you need. And, when you are that supportive friend, to say, I don't know what to say, but I want you to know I'm here for you, or I'm thinking about what you're going through. And if there's ever something you want to talk about, I'm always here to listen.
Yeah.
And if it's too hard to say it, then, write them a note,
Yes.
or, send them a message if you're worried about having the conversation, in real time.
Right. On the other side of it, when we speak to families and wanting to bridge that gap of isolation, there's also the healthcare providers and community. And so what do you feel their role is in combating some of that, and also pulling out those tools so that we can have that resilience and that well-being when we're in the midst of those really hard times?
I think healthcare providers are recognizing that you must address the whole person. They're really so focused on the disease or whatever it is that they're treating, but there is the whole person to address. And we've spoken to the research that's out there that the social connection piece is so important to the overall health and healing. And so I do think that healthcare providers are going to recognize this need. That's really our hope, is that, they will want to partner with us or have other measures for making it really easy to help folks connect with their communities. Their focus is, of course, on addressing the physical health, but there is so much more to the puzzle, if you will.
Right.
And I think in the same way that you have chaplains who are focused on the emotional and spiritual well-being of patients and caregivers, that I do think that you really also need to be addressing those social needs as well.
I feel like there's more of this awareness and conversation around it, which is encouraging, but it still isn't this fully adopted idea where we're going to put all these things in place holistically. I believe that they would like to. There's some challenges with seeing it implemented widely.
Agreed. Yeah. But I do think, in terms of there is a growing focus on the patient experience. And I think that this focus on social connection really is part of that patient experience and improving it.
I agree. That's such a great point. I love the term, that patient experience, because it is all encompassing of the whole picture of health. right? We are
Mhm.
working through some of those medical diagnosis and situation, but then what is that support that comes for our mental health, for our experience when we're interacting with the care providers and the professionals that are doing that work. So it's a huge piece of it, because we know when we feel that we are seen and cared for as a whole person, that we're going to be able to tackle some of those bigger health challenges a little bit better.
Absolutely. And that's really what Verbena is designed to do, is to really be almost like a boost or like a vitamin to help you draw on like some strength and resilience, and help you really tap into the collective power of the community to continue to address your health or the health of your loved one.
Oh my gosh, I love that boost of like
Yes.
vitamin. Yeah, that's such a great picture. We can really see that it does that. What advice would you give to people and caregivers who are wanting to build that connection with people on a health journey? What resources are available to support them? I know Verbena is one,
Yes.
absolutely. What else have you found to be really helpful in nurturing that?
I mean, I think number one, best case scenario is you get face-to-face connection, with your loved ones, with your community, if and when that's possible. It's not always possible. As old-fashioned as it is, like even a phone call is great. When you are on the receiving end, sometimes even a phone just on speakerphone, to hear like, hey, so and so's on the phone, they're thinking about you. And you can just, like, as the patient, the expectation is not that it needs to be a conversation, that you can just receive the love, you know?
That's
Um,
hard for some of us to do,
it
right?
is. It is. Yes.
I struggle with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even that's where, like, voicemail can like come in, where you could just leave someone a message. Of course, there are other existing platforms that are great. Caring Bridge has been around for 25 years. That is a great way to keep your community up to date on someone's health journey. And there are a lot of, like Meal Train, which really supports people in a very tangible way. All the people want to do is like know that they're really being helpful. And so that is a great way to support someone in a very tangible way, that they really need this. And there's so many different platforms that are really focused on like the logistics. That's where Verbena is different. Like we're not focused on all those little bits and pieces. It's really all about the social connection piece.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. The practical ways that we can step in and show that we care. How are you encouraged? Do you have any like favorite examples of how people have used the platform that we're in just really cool, creative ways that gave you hope in that?
That's a great question. I mean, the truth is, because everything, we're HIPAA compliant, everything's private. I don't know necessarily how people are using it. Like I only know how, I'm using it, or if someone else tells me. So I haven't yet heard like some of the creative ways that people are using it, but there's the functionality can be used in for all different sorts of use cases. Right. So, I know what we have used that's been helpful. I can tell you that it's not limited to people on health journeys. We used it. My son had his bar mitzvah during the height of Omicron, if you can remember that time.
Oh, yes.
So we used it to gather messages for his bar mitzvah, because many people were not able to come see him.
Oh, what a great idea.
Yeah. So it can be used for things that are, completely separate from patients and caregivers. I know that there are some organizations that have used Verbena for like onboarding and offboarding employees. So that is not, for a health journey, but it's for building community.
Yeah. The community piece is number one. And how creative is that? When you were talking about your son, especially that age too, and with COVID, we experienced that, oh my gosh, isolation from everybody at that time, and having ways to connect. What an incredible way to do that. Well, first, to address the privacy and the HIPAA, that's number one. I think people are always have questions about how is what I'm sharing safe and private. So thank you for putting that in place. But I'd love to hear from you. Walk us through like how you set it up and how it works and all of that.
Absolutely. So Verbena is really different from so many of the other like social media that's out there. So, when you download the app, it's an active platform. So when you're on there, you're not just kind of passively scrolling through. There's really very little to do. You go on there, there is a welcome video from me. There is a sample video collection that you can see how other people have used it. And then you are able to create your own video collection. So you can then be the host. And the way that it works is you create an invitation, and we say that the more intentional your invitation is, the better the contributions are going to be. So be very specific about this conversation that you're creating. And then you, as the host, can then send this invitation to whoever you want. This is a private invitation. And then folks can then join the video collection and submit their own video contribution. And so then what you have is you then amass an asynchronous video conversation. So there's these different contributed videos. You have up to 90 seconds to respond to the invitation. That host also has the ability, if there's a contribution that they want to delete, it's just like not what they're looking for, they can delete it. They can reach out to their brother and say, hey, why did you talk about that? Remember, that's a taboo subject in our family, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can then, reach out to them privately, ask them to redo it. And then you have the option of sending this whole video collection to a recipient, if that's the use. What I think is really unique about Verbina is that all of the contributors get to watch each other's videos as they come in. So, there are a lot of other platforms that collect videos, like make video montages. Those are great. Those are just for a different use case. This is really about like creating a conversation. And so, as I mentioned before, like I've done a lot of work in facilitation and really holding space. That is what Verbina is designed to do. So I kind of imagine like a dining room table where conversations happen. And this is a dining room table conversation that happens like across time and space. So that's really what makes Verbina unique. But it is different, and people notice that it takes energy. We talked about how people have this like connection anxiety. People get invited and then they're like, I don't know, this is hard. I'm like, yeah, it's different. This is like, this takes a lot more energy than like scrolling through TikTok. That is for sure.
Right. So how do families overcome that if they're feeling really hesitant? Do you have any ideas on ways to do that? Just get through it.
I mean, I think part of it is that's where the host really, their invitation can be really helpful. And if they say exactly, what will be really helpful in this particular collection, and they can also, the host can also add their own contribution that is like modeling for everyone, here's what this looks like. You can also, as the host, what I find helpful is you reach out to a couple people and say, can you get the ball rolling? This is, I've invited, all the cousins in. People aren't contributing. I think folks are nervous. Do me a favor. Can you be the first one? You do you want to practice with me? This is hard for folks. It's because they're not used to it.
Right.
And I think the younger people are more used to being on camera. So Verbina is all video based. So for younger folks, they're more comfortable being on camera, as a generalization, right? So people who are older are like a little bit more concerned about how they actually look. Typically people who are younger are not as experienced as to what to say, and older people might have more experience with like what it is that they could say. So these are some real hurdles to overcome, but I do think that, as with so many things, the things that are more challenging are more rewarding. So
I like that it's not public in the sense of, right, for all of, let's say, social media to see, or everyone that you're witness, it's focused in that group. And I think that can lend itself to have more comfort for people that might not be as familiar with, I'm going to share my video and have people watch
absolutely.
it,
Right.
Yeah.
This is completely private. When you go on there, you can't search, you couldn't search up my name and see the video collections that I'm part of or that I'm hosting. Like it's not designed to be, these things are not viewable. So they're all private and secure.
Thank you for that. And I love hearing from your perspective on what it is and how it works. I think it's really helpful. You are doing some other really cool things. You're having conversations on caring. Tell us about that. I've been able to witness those, and it's been really fun to see the different people that you've been able to interview. And where can we learn more about that and find out what you're
Thanks.
up to?
Yeah. So, part of the inspiration for doing the conversations on caring is that I found people who are not yet caregivers, they don't really know what it's all about. And so I wanted to give people kind of a perspective of like, what does caring mean? And for so many people who even are caregivers, they might not realize they're caregivers.
Totally. Yeah.
So I'm talking to folks in the field who are experienced caregivers or patients to really give like kind of a inside view into what do we not know from outsiders. So, for one example, I talked to a friend of mine whose son had leukemia when he was 4, and he's now 12. He's in remission, and she talks about that experience and is able to share, for folks who have never experienced being a parent of their kid who's become ill, what does that look like? What does it feel like? These are the questions that you might not be able to ask someone, but you're wondering.
Right. Yeah.
And all of these conversations on caring, they're no more than 10 minutes. I wanted to have this be, not like bite-sized, but snackable, I guess. It's like,
okay, I've got 10 minutes. I can easily, listen and absorb.
Right. So, and really have this be like a growing library of resource of different ways to understand the whole world of caring.
And where can we find all of these?
Oh,
yeah.
So that's on YouTube.
Okay.
So Conversations on Caring. So, and you can like look at the playlist and watch those.
I appreciate your heart for building community. It is evident in all the work that you've done. I'm so glad we've gotten the opportunity to visit and connect today. It's meaningful to me that we are now in this space where we can all come together and support each other's work. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And where can we download the app and the website? And I'll have you share how we can learn more. Yeah.
Great. So the app is on both iOS and Android platforms, and the website is Verbina, Verbina.app. By the time this airs, the app will also be available web-based. So folks who want to use, what we found is that some people, especially people who are older, are just more comfortable sitting at their desktop or laptop to do these videos. Yeah. So you can like kind of take a little bit more time and space to have these conversations on your computer. So that will also be available.
Thank you so much. It's so good. I hope everyone goes and learns more about it and has the opportunity to build that happiness and connection into our day. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Really happy to be here. Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.